In this video, we're going to take a look at how you can use TypeScript to work with FHIR resources. Specifically, we are going to be taking a look at the type/FHIR library. Now, this is a TypeScript library that just defines the FHIR types, but then it's super useful when you're working with something like creating a FHIR resource. And we're going to take a look at how you can do that. So the first thing is I'm going to create a new directory. Let's just call it FHIR.js, and let's open this directory. Now this is completely new, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new package.json npm init-y. This will just automatically create this. Now in here, I'm going to add this particular type/FHIR library. Now you can add this using npm or pnpm, whatever you want. I'm just going to do npm install, just copy paste the same command. And what this will do is it will install all of the FHIR types in here. So if you take a look, there are all the R4, R4B, R5, all of these are just different FHIR types. Now this is very useful when you are actually trying to create FHIR resources. So for example, I'll use an index.ts file here, and then let me just say import, so let's say from FHIR. Then you have FHIR R4, R4B, R5. R4 is mostly the version that most people use, so we're going to go with that. So let's just take a look at something like a patient resource, right? This is the R6 version that opens by default, but you can actually go back to the R4 version. So let's say you have a patient resource and you want to create a patient with a name, telecom, and gender. What you would do is just import the particular resource, patient, and then now you can just say const resource, and then you can say this is of type patient, right? And in this case, let's say let resource of type patient. Now the advantage that you get with declaring this as a particular type is that you actually get autocomplete. You can actually do resource dot, and then it'll show you all of the different types that are available. And then you can see that it's actually a type of human name. So for example, let's say we want to set a name. You also know that it's an array. So we can actually open up a bracket here. And then underneath that, it will still autocomplete all of the given fields under that name, right? So we can actually say, let's say family, and then we can take a look, say string or undefined, Ramesh, and then given. And then let's say I do Siddharth. It'll actually give me an error here because string is not assignable to type of array of string, because given, as we know from the FHIR standard and the human name, it's actually supposed to be 0 to multiple. So it's going to be an array again. So let's actually make this an array. And then now it doesn't complain. So what's variable resource is used before assignment. So we actually need to say, okay, now here it complains saying it's missing the resource type property. Okay, so that is mandatory everywhere. So we need to add the resource type, and then it automatically completes it as patient. So now this is again like super useful when you're just trying to work with FHIR resources in TypeScript, JavaScript, any JS environment. Just having this type saves you a lot of time and a lot of headache. Now let's say we want to add another attribute. Let's say we want to add phone number, right? Let's say telecom, and then we can quickly look up the actual type. This is ContactPoint. What we can actually do is we can also say, ContactPoint, and we can say this is the type of ContactPoint. Let's say let ContactPoint is FHIR R4 ContactPoint, and then it will actually tell you what this looks like. This is actually extending an element, but let's just create an array, and it'll tell you that it has system, and it auto-completes to phone, and then we can say value, we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, for example, right? And then we can set this telecom. Let's see again what type this is. It's an array of ContactPoint, and we can just set this as an array of ContactPoint. Perfect. Now finally, let's just console.log all of this and then see what this looks like. Now this is just a simple object. If you want, you can also JSON.stringify this before you log it. And then let's just give it an indentation so it looks nice and pretty. I'm going to use the TSX library to actually run this. So let's just do npx tsx index.ts. And perfect. We have our FHIR resource, and we know that it's valid because of the type safety here. We've always been using this, but if you really want to actually validate and know for a fact that this is a valid FHIR resource, you can also use the FHIR.js library. So this is a library by, it's actually by the FHIR Foundation, but then it's been archived, but a lot of people still use it. So this will help you actually validate if a FHIR resource is actually valid. So let's just install that. And let's see the usage. You just say require FHIR, or just like we'll do an import FHIR from FHIR, and we'll just create a new instance and we will just do a validation on our JSON, right? Let's see if that works. So let's say import FHIR from FHIR. Const FHIR equals FHIR. And then down here, let's just do FHIR.validate resource. So again, I'm not sure if this, okay, this is, did you mean FHIR? Okay, it's actually FHIR, and it's FHIR in here as well. Okay. Okay, we need to say new FHIR. Perfect. So now this has input, and this can be a string or an object or whatever. Now let's just see if the validation works. Perfect, this works. So let's just give it some invalid value. Now the thing with the TypeScript compiler is that it will give you type errors, but then it won't stop you from actually running this. This will still sort of work. So let's actually try this. And we get nothing actually. So let's see if it, okay, it does return a validator response. So let's console.log this. Let's set this as a constant validator response. Let's see what that looks like. So we see that you also have a validation message saying patient.name.given property is not an array. Perfect. So these are two ways in which you can actually work with FHIR in TypeScript. So you have the type checking done by the FHIR / R4 package in here, and then you actually have the validation during runtime done by the FHIR npm library, and that's about it. Hopefully that was useful, and if you liked it, do check out more resources down in the description below. We have a bunch of free courses on our website. Just if you want to learn FHIR and if you want to learn about different things in detail, do check it out. And again, thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.